When things are running well, everyone's strong and doing their job and really working, great tip. Everyone's all smiles. But very easily, when things aren't going well, that's what we'll see things crumble. Welcome to the EP Debrief. I'm Chris Delacruz, and I'm your host. Okay, we have all seen it. We've seen the meme, the dog sitting in the house with fire around it with the two words, "It's fine." I'm pretty sure every event planner can relate to that. And I'm pretty sure I've probably used that meme multiple times. Look, planners, we are expected to do so many things. The expectations of pulling off magic tricks like Harry Potter, using information that was never given to us, but somehow we should have known, and the occasional production change 10 minutes before doors open. We love that, even though we spent 6 months reviewing that schedule. Yeah. And we all get it. We get the dietary restrictions. We have to tell the caterer because a new thing came up to do all of these changes with the budget cut. So what are we supposed to do? What event planners don't really talk about is the one thing that we get all the time. Literally, it's not in the books. Training can't tell you this. There's one thing we always get. You know those bags under our eyes? Love that. So chic, or not. And the occasional gray hair, because who doesn't love their hair turning gray off of stress? The EP Debrief is where pop culture meets the event industry. And I'm going to take you into that world where we take what is currently relevant, what's trending online, what's on TikTok, what's the new reality TV show that's out there, game competition, movie, and then dissecting it, pulling out information that is crucial for event planners and applying it to the event world and how we can be better planners ourselves, but how we can be better partners with the vendors that we're working with and with our clients. So here we are. And the one thing that we're going to start off with is below deck. And yes, it is something that I feel like a lot of us can relate to in the event industry, hospitality industry. We have the chaotic and sometimes demanding clients, timelines that are completely not realistic, and maintaining composure and looking happy and make sure that everything is fine. Again, going back to that little meme of the dog with the fire around us, that is absolutely us smiling with everything imploding around us. So why does below deck work? Event planners are able to relate to it. It is the teams, it is the crew, it is the vendors that we have to work with. And you see it on the show. The team is lined up and the guests roll up and you're smiling, acting like life is great. But the reality is you're probably internally panicking and you're probably thinking about, oh my God, I still have a million other things to do. And that is something that us event planners are constantly having to think about. Let's be real. I am probably right now, as we're talking about this, have 5 different things I'm thinking about for an event I'm planning. Timelines, contracts. The list goes on. And honestly, one of the things that I really, really like is the fact that we get last minute requests. We love last minute requests. We do our best, and honestly, call us a wizard, because the amount of things that we can make appear out of nowhere is insane. So honestly, below deck essentially is events, but at sea with better views, better locations, and a shitty sleeping situation. So first lesson here from watching that show, you got the crew, you have the events or the little dinner parties, you have the excursions that the guests want to go on. It's same in a way, rinse and repeat, just like events. In a way, it's rinse and repeat. You have the client, you have the attendees, you have the theme we had to put together. We have all of that, right? Yeah, check. Let's check it off the list and then call it a day. But it's not that easy. And look, below deck guests are experienced luxury. They pay for this experience, for everything to be seamless. So from the moment they arrive and they show up, you have the crew greeting them, lined up, all smiles, perfect, clean uniform. You get a tour of the yacht. You're shown everything in advance. The guests are providing their dietary restrictions, what they want to do, the activities they want to do. We event planners have that same, in a way, shell or kind of structure, right? Like we literally, through registration, get the dietary restrictions. We are expected when attendees show up, we are smiling and giving them the best experience upon arrival all the way until they walk out the door. The thing is, to make this happen, there are so many things that have to not really honestly come to play, right? It's the vendors, it is the caterers, it is the like designers, it is the people bringing in all the decor. I mean, the list literally will go on. Like we can name every single component of this because guess what? They have to do that on Below Deck. They get this whole dossier of who the guests are, who's coming, what the expectations are, the dietary restrictions, and things that they want to do. So on the back end, which actually Below Deck doesn't show, because in a way, from the attendees, what they don't see is the consistent communication to the vendors. Hey, like here's the order, here's the timeline, here's when it needs to be delivered, here's the decor that I need, make sure it's delivered. Doing all of that, not so glamorous work is not typically seen on Below Deck. There are, on occasion, you see them contacting the vendors for, more food or some decor or entertainment's coming that's being brought onto the boat. You have those snippets, and in an event perspective, attendees don't see that. They expect to show up and everything is just great, right? They expect to arrive, have this experience, and they're not worrying about, is the entertainment here? They're not worrying about, I hope all the decor is all set up. There is the expectation that it's done, it's set, and that they don't have to see behind the scenes of what is going on. The, entertainment that's running late, so they're like running through the event. That is our job as event planners. And that's why Below Deck is so relatable, because you see it where the guests are having dinner and, there's that experience happening. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, what we see it often or sometimes, they're bringing in special entertainment through the back. So the guests don't even see this whole movement happening. It's almost like this whole like facade, right? You have the front facing crew who is putting on in a way, a show for the guests. So for us, when we're planning events, we are putting on an event, an experience. Every single thing in events where it requires a new vendor, a new, someone entertainment for like an evening event. Guests don't care logistically how they're going to get there. They just know they are going to be there. And sometimes it is a surprise. So on Below Deck, when they bring in some special entertainment that they don't know of, and then, wow, they wrap up dinner and it becomes this fun, oh, hey, surprise, here's this like surprise entertainment for you. Same thing, right? We create this whole experience. I've done events for so many years, and there are moments where we are surprising the guests and attendees at this party. And having to keep things under wrap and kind of have that movement happen really is something that takes some like skill, really. The hush hush, don't say who's coming around, don't like say anything, make sure we have every single movement from point A to point B onto the stage so that no one sees them. It's actually quite fun. In my eyes, it's like a little puzzle that we have to like figure out. But people don't really think about that. For guests, and what you see again on Below Deck and what is the expectation is that guests are experiencing this magic, this something where from start to end, it is an experience that is like no other, something that is going to be ingrained in their memories. And the thing that we planners, event professionals literally have to do is absorb all of the friction, all of the stress, all of those like last minute things that come up. Those are the things that we have to do and absorb so that the guests don't see it. Lesson 2, the cruise experience. You see that in Below Deck where every single person and their role has an impact to the guest experience. And we need to understand from our perspective as event professionals, our role, no matter whether we are support, whether we are the lead, whether we are a vendor, or whether we're the client, we affect the attendee experience if we are front facing. And that could be an attendee walking by, but something can make or break an attendee experience just by not smiling or saying, hello, how's your day? How can I help you? It's those little gestures that really make a huge impact in the overall success for events. You have the reg team, you have the overall lead, you have the security team, you have every single component to make this experience happen so that it is seamless for the guests or the attendees in this case for events. And look, in this case, what I want to point out is that the vendor's voice really matters in this, because not only is it us staff working the event, we're bringing in brand ambassadors, we're bringing in vendors. They're the ones helping us create this full experience, right? They're part of that crew, that part of that experience. And even though in Below Deck, it's a much more fine-tuned, very focused group in a larger scale for events, it's the same thing. You have someone who's leading, then you have the support team underneath, you have the chef that you're still having to work with on the food and beverage level, making sure all the dietary restrictions are considered for, making sure things are labeled correctly, and the flow of the venue, right? Like making sure guests know how to get around on Below Deck. They do a tour in the beginning for the charter guests to make sure they know how to navigate the yacht that they're going to be on so that they aren't getting lost. They're not going down halls that they're not supposed to. And that is where, in a world of events, signage is so important. And the team running that is like a very key for events. It's very easy to get lost in like large venues. So if we're not working collectively as a team, things will start to crumble. And here's the thing. If we aren't communicating with our vendors, if our vendors aren't communicating with us, how can we plan the best event that we can plan? Look, you can't expect people to perform at their best when we're given half the information. And literally, I mean that in every single aspect of events, whether it's your internal team, whether it's from the client or the vendor, or even ourselves to our partners. If we aren't giving the full context of information and we're just assuming people know, that is almost like the number one reason things just do not pan out on site. Because a lot of things live here, but not a lot of things live on our documents. And I see it time and time again. People know the event in their head, but when it comes to translating it onto documents and sharing it with the extended team that's on site, there's always like half information that is being given. And I think that is one thing that Below Deck does very well for every new charter guest, is that they really have a full detailed plan from them of what is expected. Again, dietaries, who the guests are, everything, start to finish, what their whole schedules, experiences. And can you imagine if any of that was missing, any component of that was missing, the guests would probably not have a great experience. So that is where I think they do a really great job of that. But of course, comes the actual execution component of it all. And it's something where we have to just ensure that we are giving our teams as much information. I always believe in over communicating. And I do like when the captain brings in the heads, like the bosun, the chef, and the chief stew, runs them down, and then they break off into their individual teams and then give their team the full rundown with the papers and everything so that everyone truly understands. They do that very well. And sometimes I do see in events where when information is having to be disseminated, not all the information is actually being disseminated. Some information is still stuck in our brain. Some information people kind of forget, or some people just will assume. There's nothing worse than in the world of events than to assume, because it will then cause this ripple effect of issues. Because, well, I assumed this person got it. I assumed this vendor was going to handle it. Over communicating is key. So just saying. And again, going back to the whole cruise, the experience, doesn't matter where you are in the rankings. If you are front-facing guests or attendees, you put that smile on and you give them the best experience that you can give. And if that just means they're walking by you and you go, "Hello, how are you today?" Or you see their glass of water going down, "Let me refill that for you." Or you see an attendee holding an empty plate, then it's, okay, hey, let me get that for you. Please enjoy the rest of your event. It's little things like that that really make a huge impact. And you really do see that happen in Below Deck with those little gestures that don't really seem big, but really make a huge difference. And then we see it on the show. Every little gesture affects the tip. In our case, every little gesture affects a renewed contract for the next event. Something that I do also want to talk about is that we are in the business of serving, our clients and the attendees and the guests, but that doesn't mean we stop being human. At the end of the day, we are human. We have feelings and we have our own lives outside of our professional worlds. And on the show, a Below Deck, we see a little bit of that, right? You see the professionalism, you see them actually doing their job, but then you see them outside of work and you see the interpersonal relationships, you see them navigating relationships outside, their significant other and that they're on FaceTime or calling with. These are real things that we go through as event professionals. There's the occasional meltdown that happens because finally we're able to have our guard down. Below Deck really shows the physical exhaustion of the demands of these quick charter guest days. It's like sometimes they're 1 day, sometimes 2 days, typically 2.5 days. And there's nothing more relatable than seeing someone be exhausted. Because as an event planner, and I said in the beginning, we get those bags under our eyes, we get that little gray strand of hair because of just how exhausted we are. We're feeling like we're burnt out. We're feeling like we can't even see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's tough. I mean, it's definitely not for the weak. And I think sometimes our friends and family forget that. They think we're just putting off these really cool events, but they don't see the behind the scenes of it all. And I think it's important to note that we are still human because I think sometimes our clients will forget that. Our vendors will forget that. Our own colleagues will forget we are humans and not robots, right? We only have a certain limit that we can reach. And at some point we break mentally, physically, and it starts to affect our job. And you start to see that, later in the season for Below Deck, where, everyone's starting off strong. And then as the days and weeks go on, you see the physical exhaustion. You see everyone's patient become less and less and less. You start seeing people butting heads. But at the end of the day, we are all there for one purpose, is to provide the best experience to our guests and attendees. And I think the problem is that we normalize working long hours, long days, and having to push ourselves, forgetting that we do deserve a break. We do deserve a moment to catch our breath. But you also see it. There are cases where if one team member is down, oh my God, the ripple effect that has on the rest of the team. I mean, say goodbye to your breaks, say goodbye to getting any rest because now you're in overdrive having to work. And in events, when a team member's down, team member's sick, someone is unable to be on site, something happens, you feel it. You absolutely feel it. And it's crazy to think that no matter what, your role is so crucial and so important that without you, this whole infrastructure and ecosystem that we're building for this event will crumble, that we only have certain limits. And, we have to have a little bit of flexibility. Sometimes we have to remind people and each other that we can't always keep saying yes, going above and beyond. It is our job, yes. But if we continuously do that, then from a client perspective, that's what they expect all the time, always pushing harder and harder and harder. But at what point does it not be okay anymore? At what point are us planners pushing our vendors where it starts to affect the actual relationship on site? Because we need our vendors. So how far do we push our vendors? How far do we push back against our clients? How far do we push our own colleagues on, well, you can do more. Let's add more to your plate. I think we just got to remember that we are human at the end of the day. And to be honest, I think where I see burnout happen a lot of is not by the work itself. A lot of us really do love our job, but it is caused by the amount of iterations we have to do on these documents. Well, here's version 1, 2, 3, and then at some point we're at version 156 off of, a production schedule, a deck, something always changing. And every change, again, has that ripple effect down. Man, I am exhausted talking about this. And like last little lesson here from Below Deck is chaos is usually inherited. And I have a lot of experience in this, and I feel some sort of way about this because I think the disconnect that I see a lot of is the pre-planning team isn't necessarily always thinking about the on-site team. Sometimes there is a little bit of overlap, but in the case of where we're bringing in brand ambassadors, we're bringing in extended team to help us on site, these individuals are not part of the pre-planning. And when the pre-planning is not done correctly, and then you bring the team on site, and then all of a sudden there's fires happening, there's stress, there's all of these things. And what I see a lot of, oh my gosh, the blame game. Oh, well, you're in charge of this on site. So what happened? And sometimes what people don't realize, it is stemming from the pre-planning, the improper pre-planning, the like lack of communication when transitioning, things to like the on-site team. Look, a lot of event chaos really isn't what happens on site or because of what is happening on site. It's because of everything that came before that. It started when the decision was delayed. It started when the vendor was brought in too late. The approval process was unclear in the pre-planning. Ownership was vague on roles in the pre-planning. Communication lived in 14 different places, Slack, chat, email, you name it. It all starts there. And when you don't have a proper structure to start off with, the event is doomed in a way of logistical operations. The event will always be pulled off because we event professionals pull magic out of our ass and make things happen. But logistically and operationally, it is not fun. And I've been on both ends. I've been on the on-site team end where I'm not given enough information, fires are happening, and I have zero context of what's going on or how to handle it, but everything's falling on me, and vice versa, where I was part of the pre-planning. And I felt bad because I thought I set up the team for success, and the reality was I didn't. So these are learning lessons that I had to take to better myself. And, going back to Below Deck, right? Like when the leads get the dossier and then they disseminate to the teams who would now need to operate once like the charter guests get on site. If something is lack of or there's no communication done correctly, things will slip through the cracks. And then it becomes the blame game. It becomes all of these things where it could have been prevented, completely prevented. That takes me to this 60-second rant of the podcast, which I'm so excited for every vendor to go through this and just kind of take through that. So I will start with mine. Okay, 60-second rant. I am so fed up with people who do not take accountability. Whether it's the client, whether it's our own colleagues, or even the vendor, I see it time and time again where people blame other people because they are scared to take accountability. And there's nothing more that irks me than when you start to blame me for something that is your fault. How many times do you see that happen? And why am I being blamed? Take accountability, because I think there's more respect in taking accountability for something that went wrong, that you owned and that was your fault, versus blaming someone else, because there's nothing worse than blaming someone and having that friction. And you see that in Below Deck where people blame others because they're too scared to take accountability. And for me, if you want to try to blame me, I will always come with my receipts. So something that I'm taking from just even talking through this and really thinking about this, we need to learn how to be better partners so that we aren't feeling like we have to do the blame game and that it's easier to take accountability. I think that as event professionals, having those conversations up front of what are those expectations, how can we work together better, will completely change how we plan events and how we approach events. I kind of did that a little bit. I was planning an event before, and it was my first time really working with this team. And what I did, I reached out to the individuals and asked, hey, what's the best way you operate and you work so that I can support that and make sure that you are operating at your best? Because I can always come in and say, here's how I want to run things. This is how we're going to do it. And I don't care how you like it. We're doing it my way. Sure, people do operate that way, but the culture sucks. And by asking that little question of how can I be a better partner for you and help support you so you're performing at your best was a game changer, huge game changer. And we need to do that with our vendors. We need to do that with our clients, and we need to do that with our internal teams, because with the event debrief after an event, again, we can go through everything that went well, room for opportunity and growth. But if we're not making changes to make sure we are continuously making growth and making the same mistakes, what's the point of having an event debrief? And that's why we're here, to help pull those lessons out so that you can make a change in how you operate your events. At the end of the day, watching Below Deck, there was a thought that came in my mind actually. And when I'm watching some of these episodes and the team executing, the excursions or the events or the dinner parties, do you watch this and say, oh, wow, well, that 100% is relatable? But then do you do anything after that? Does it ever trigger something like, wow, like that's how I've been operating. Let me change how I operate now. Or, wow, I've done that before, and now I'm seeing it transpire on somebody else. I don't want to be the cause of that. Let me change how I plan things so that I am helping the team. It's interesting because I'm in so many conversations with fellow event professionals, and it's always, I can relate. I relate to that show so much. Oh yeah, I totally get what they're saying. I understand. Yeah, when they do that, I 100% relate. But does the conversation stop there? Do you actually put action to this? Well, I relate to that. Or do you take it as a learning lesson of, wow, this gave me a different perspective on how to run a intimate dinner, how to run an excursion logistically, and now it changes and affects the way that you've approached events? I'm curious about that because I think we get so caught up in the drama, and we love the drama. Who doesn't? But I think what Below Deck teaches us are these valuable lessons that we can take and implement in our actual work, in our way of how we work with each other, right? Like, we don't have to be best friends with everyone, but they really show what happens when you're not working as a team. It really shows when you're not being the best partners with the vendors, because we only can do so much. At the end of the day, when an event is done, and we're doing the debrief, that is where we really need to take, not here's all the successes. It is, how do we redesign how we approach the next event so that we're not making the same mistakes over and over and over again? That is the takeaway. And in Below Deck, you see that happen, right? You have the first charter, there's kind of a little bumpiness with the team. They learn and they adapt and they adjust for the next charters, and then they adjust for the next one. So hoping that they're a well-oiled machine, but then there's, again, the balance of people starting to get exhausted and all of that. We have to figure out a great balance so that we're not burning ourselves out, but making sure that we're always making progress towards the next event so that, again, we're not making that same mistake. There's nothing worse than in a debrief saying, oh, well, that thing happened again. Well, why didn't we prevent that from happening? Why didn't we stop that from happening? We knew this happens. Why is it now in our debrief again? So we need to take those lessons, whether we're watching it on TV, whether it's something that we're experiencing, and making sure we're really making those pivots and adjustments so that we can continuously be successful and be the best version of ourselves as event professionals for our clients and our vendors, and have that true, strong partnership. So takeaway here for planners, bring vendors in early and start communicating. And for vendors, share that process early. What makes it easier to work with us planners, right? Like, we know there's going to be last minute requests from the clients, from the guests, from the attendees. How do we work with each other when we know that's going to happen? How do we set those expectations so we are being the best partners with each other and not butting heads with each other when those last minute requests come in? And clients, please give us some grace. Give us some grace a little bit. We're human. We know you always want us to push and make it the best thing in the world. And we will. We'll make it happen. The amount of things we can make happen, we will make happen. But give us time, help us, and be partners with us in that way. Because sometimes when these last minute requests come in, you have to understand there is always a budgetary implication that I think sometimes is forgotten. Like, look, if we're throwing out our Christmas wish list, great. put a yacht on mine. But if we're not being realistic with our asks, we're only setting up our team and the planner that you're bringing in up for failure. So let's just make sure we are trying to always collectively work as a team. As we see it on below deck, when things are running well, everyone's strong and doing their job and really working as great partners, amazing charter, great tip. Everyone's all smiles. But very easily, when things aren't going well, that's what we'll see things crumble. So thanks for listening. That's the EP debrief. Stay tuned for next episode.